Caliph swarm was never supposed to reach Drasha Station. Every coalition sensor net between the outer belt and the inner colonies had failed to flag it, which was already a problem. What made it a crisis was the number now converging on the station's cargo yard. Somewhere between 500 and 700 autonomous Caliph drones, each built around a self-repairing crystalline frame that shrugged off standard plasma fire unless you caught the seams where the segments joined. Sergeant Corin Vale had been running a routine supply audit when the dropships breached atmosphere. Wrong shift, wrong dock, wrong day. The swarm poured out of the wreckage within minutes, and every calculation about the day changed at once. His evac pod sat 2.5 kilometers south, undamaged but pinned beneath a Caliph perimeter that made any approach a death sentence. Between Corin and that pod stood roughly 600 machines running on a single shared intelligence, no instinct for retreat, and one function: strip every scrap of usable metal and energy from anything in their path, organic or otherwise. Corin took in the situation in under 5 seconds. Then he opened fire. His rifle's charge would hold for 6 minutes at full draw. He stretched it to 9 by alternating short bursts with dead silence, letting the swarm's tracking algorithms lose him for half seconds at a time. His suit's shield was only rated to stop about half of what was bearing down on him, which meant every second bought him less margin than the one before. He never stood still. A stationary target against a hive mind gets surrounded from every angle at once. Motion forced the swarm to recompute its approach vectors constantly, and every recomputation cost it time. Time that, added up, was the only thing keeping him alive. What Corin didn't know was that Ambassador Illyra Thessen's transport had crash-landed on the ridge above the cargo yard 11 minutes earlier, its engines clipped by the same debris cloud that had grounded his own pod. Her security escort, 9 of the Thessen Compact's most decorated field officers, had been moving carefully toward the noise of battle when their lead scout, Commander Bresk, froze mid-step and said nothing for nearly 10 seconds. 9 soldiers stood in total silence, watching one human cut a path through a swarm their own doctrine said needed a full company to even hold the line against. Illyra took the scope from Bresk without asking, the way someone does when she's used to seeing things for herself. What she watched over the next 3 minutes didn't match anything in the military briefings she'd been raised on. Corin didn't fight the swarm so much as work through it. No wasted motion, no pause between targets. Every shot landing exactly on the seam where a Caliph's plating gave way. Someone had clearly studied their anatomy before this day, and remembered it the way people from harder worlds remember anything that might someday keep them breathing. "He's pushing them into the loading trench," Bresk said suddenly, respect breaking into his voice. "He's been doing it the whole time. He's using the terrain against them." Illyra looked again. It was true, Corin was steadily herding the swarm's approach toward a narrow maintenance trench that would collapse their spread formation into a single manageable line. A position he seemed to have picked out and been working toward since before anyone arrived to watch. "Give the order," Illyra said. Bresk already had. 9 soldiers hit the swarm from the loading platform above, matching the same seam targeting Corin had been using, opening a second front the hive mind's shared processing couldn't adjust for fast enough. The swarm broke as an organized force within 2 minutes of their arrival. Corin, kneeling behind a supply crate to reload and figure out where his sudden backup had come from, looked up to see 9 armed officers descending from the platform, and then a woman in a scorched formal coat walking through the settling dust toward him with the look of someone holding back several very pointed questions. "You were hurting them," Illyra said, because it seemed like the thing to say first. "Trench narrows the approach," Corin said. "Easier to manage 60 at a time than 600. Isn't complicated. How long were you out here alone?" She checked the timestamp on her comm. 14 minutes. First one was mostly figuring out the ground. Illyra studied him with the particular attention of someone who had grown up around decorated soldiers and had never once seen this. "Your evac pod is 2 kilometers south," she said. "My escorts already confirmed the route's clear now that the swarm's down. Our transport can lift once we patch the guidance array. We could use another set of hands." "I know guidance systems," Corin said, standing, checking what charge he had left with the quiet precision of a man who always knew exactly how much he had. Bresk, watching the exchange, filed away something in it that would take him days to fully name. The early shape of something with a much longer road ahead of it than one afternoon on a burned-out cargo dock. The guidance array took 35 minutes to fix. They didn't stop talking once. When Illyra's transport lifted off Drasha Station 6 hours later, the official incident report listed 1 stranded diplomat recovered, 1 hostile swarm neutralized, and 1 guidance system repaired. Corin's own debrief note was shorter. Handled it. Fine. In the following months, the Drasha Station engagement became a standard case study in coalition tactical schools, the first recorded instance of a single field soldier redirecting a full Caliph swarm through terrain alone, ahead of any reinforcement. Ambassador Thessan kept her copy of the report in her personal files, though she always maintained its biggest omission was the 35 minutes of conversation no official record had bothered to note. Corin never thought the day was worth much comment. He'd solved the problem, fixed the array, and, by his own account, described it exactly as it happened.